Hey everyone, welcome to Workforce Gaming. I am Brad along with Doug.
Hey,
So this week, Dark Souls 3 was released, and
hmm
Doug, I don't were you into Dark Souls or was it just Bloodborne? I don't remember.
Dark Souls. I was kind of I had played Dark Souls before I played Bloodborne, and Dark Souls got me excited for Bloodborne, but I'm not like a huge Dark Souls fan.
Gotcha. Okay, so Doug has put in a little bit of time into this. He's not done with it, but you're what, 7, 8 hours in at this point?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, these like the reason we're talking about this and not like reviewing it is because these are just long games, and we named ourselves Workforce Gaming because we have jobs, and I don't know how people get these long ass games over done so quickly. So this is kind of like
Because
a
that's their
first.
job.
Yeah, that's true actually. Yeah. So this is see this is like sort of a first impression is kind of like too little a thing. I did put like a good chunk of time in this. I feel like I'm probably about a third of the way through. So I guess
All right,
still
so
first impressions.
enough rambling about things that people don't care about. What do you think of Dark Souls so far?
Ha 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 ha.
So it's a humorous game, I take it, based on your laughter.
Yeah, it's actually it kind of is. I don't want to start this way, but I guess this is like getting right into it. Dark Souls 3 is kind of silly. Like
Huh?
it's like really weirdly silly. I liked Dark Souls, which got me excited for Bloodborne, but Bloodborne is probably one of my favorite games ever. So when I put in Dark Souls 3, I was kind of expecting Bloodborne 2 and a mix of Dark Souls. It actually really is like a very strong mix of Dark Souls and Bloodborne. But really first my first impression is like the enemy design is really silly. Like everybody has really silly hats. There's characters that like kind of like laugh at you. There's there's this weird like the setting is very cool. It's like this. It's like way post apocalyptic 15th century kind of thing. It's like Dark Souls like took place however long ago, and this is like it's so far past the apocalypse that like the world's almost turned to ash, which
Wait,
is really
really?
cool. I haven't seen anything like that before, where it's like a very dead society. It's like yeah, it's like a post apocalyptic medieval game.
That's
Uh,
kind of awesome.
no, it is really cool. Yeah, I mean, I know you're
Huh.
not a huge fan of Dark Souls,
Oh no, I
just
will not
because
be touching this ever.
no, no, but I mean, like the thing you could say is like Bloodborne at least was cool. Like that's that even if you didn't like it that much, like the setting is neat,
Yes, I will say the setting of Bloodborne is fantastic,
and
and I
that's
will
kind of
leave
like
it
yeah,
specifically there.
and that's kind of how to frame this is like my impressions of Dark Souls in relation to Bloodborne. Bloodborne is a very it takes itself very seriously. It's this very cool, very slick kind of game. I would say there's like only maybe one or two joke enemies, maybe like one joke boss. But it takes itself very seriously. It has this very strange, weird, warped story. And the Dark Souls 3 doesn't seem to take itself as seriously. There's a lot of like nods to the older games, but the nods are more like jokes. There's like nods to old character designs. I feel like it kind of I guess a good example is there's this enemy in the game that you find a lot, which are sort of these like little goblin assassin characters, and these big long like wizard hats, and like the wizard hat kind of like flops all over the place, and they run up and like kind of stab you and stuff. They're just like really silly looking. And there's like another character, like one of the harder characters in the game that you like want to avoid. This is not a spoiler. This is like still pretty early on. Is this big fat like woman character that kind of laughs like the Joker and has a big floppy farming hat, and like that's the character design. So like when I'm going like I like these games for their world and for their setting, and like that's my impression was from Bloodborne, which is like very slick, very cool all the time. And it's just like I don't quite get this world. Like I don't quite get the joke that like I'm
I
not in
mean,
on.
it worked for Team Fortress.
Oh, yeah. Okay, it's not like team. Okay, it's not like super silly. It's just kind of hard. Like with like Bloodborne, there's a constant sense of like dread because you don't know what sort of horrific monstrosity is coming next. And in Dark Souls, like, okay, what sort of silly thing are they gonna throw at me next? Like that's what it kind of felt like. So like I was kind of immediately just kind of I was just immediately coming off of Bloodborne just a little bit. It didn't click as quick, I guess, because the setting wasn't as interesting to me. I mean, a post-apocalyptic medieval setting is kind of interesting, but it's not nearly as cool as Bloodborne's weird Victorian era where guns and hunters who come at night and a sickness that's creating like zombie monster humans and stuff like that. And then and then on top of that, the gameplay is actually this is a weird thing to talk about because the gameplay is very different from Bloodborne. It's much slower. than Bloodborne, which I mean, Bloodborne was a faster version of Dark Souls, and this is still faster than the original Dark Souls, but it's not nearly as fast as Bloodborne. So it feels like very slow and methodical, which is cool, unless unless it's a game where you have to restart and die a lot.
Yeah.
And I know you had that issue with Bloodborne, but in this game, like some enemies, like they take a few minutes to fight. Like even if you know how to fight them, like it takes a while to get through some enemies.
Ugh.
To the point where I was just like, if I was going through an old area, I just end up like running past things. I was
That's
just
why I
like, you know
tried to
what?
play Bloodborne.
Which is actually it actually is a good method of actually playing those games. But like I realized I was like running past like just too much stuff because like it wasn't fun to fight them. It wasn't exciting to I don't know. I just didn't feel like that. I didn't feel like that need to fight these characters like in Bloodborne.
So you'd rather just play like Dark Souls 3 colon Mirror's Edge and
Well,
just run past.
well, I mean, sort of, but not. I mean, I get that. I think it's just kind of counterintuitive with a slow, methodic gameplay in a game that you restart and die a lot.
Yeah.
Bloodborne is methodical, but it's not slow. Like if you just dick around in Bloodborne, you'll die really quickly. But you can move really quick. You can do your stuff really quick, and that's actually what I've actually been building my character in Dark Souls. You actually have in Bloodborne, you basically have like a very defensive character. They all play sort of the same. Like you change your stats this way or that to change how you want to attack, but like your characters sort of move the same. But in Dark Souls, you can actually choose to have like a really heavy knight character or a really light thief character or a wizard or this or that. So I basically just try to put my guy's stats so he played more like Bloodborne characters. And as soon as I actually got the stats high enough to like where they started playing, that's when I actually started to click. I was like, oh, okay, this is fun now.
I just turned Dark Souls into Bloodborne. Now I can
that's
play
and
this.
that's what I did. But then when I realized like when I sort of did this kind of voodoo, stat manipulation stuff to kind of get it to play that way, I was having a lot more fun. And that's when I started sinking some like serious time into it. It took like Bloodborne. I felt like I immediately fell into it. Was like immediately interested in the story. Immediately loved the gameplay. And this one, like I was kind of like hesitant on the story because I really didn't know what was going on. Kind of hesitant on the gameplay because I thought it was too slow. But like once it clicks, and that's kind of what happens with like every Souls game. So I'm really, really enjoying myself now. I'm enjoying myself because I've made my guy really fast, and on top of that, I have a lot more health pack stuff now. It's the Estus
Yeah.
flasks, and basically what you can do is you can upgrade your Estus flask so you get more and more. It's basically if you play Bloodborne, it's like you get more blood vials as it goes on. So now I'm at the point where I'm not super afraid of dying, and I feel like I can experiment more, and that's where it's a lot more fun. While Bloodborne kind of like started off that way. Bloodborne like allows you to experiment immediately. It allows you to immediately get into a fight really quick and be like, okay, I don't know what the fuck I'm doing, but we'll figure it out on the way. So I actually am enjoying it a lot now. Again, still not like the best game ever. And it kind of feels like it is kind of interesting though. Like a lot of the callbacks they make to the old Dark Souls games. Because I did play the Dark Souls one, and I don't want to spoil it, but there is a lot of cool things that do callbacks to the old game. So if you have been playing the series, I'm sure if you already played the series, I'm sure you might actually already own this. It does a
Probably.
lot of cool.
I feel like this is either a game that you either knew you were gonna like or knew you were gonna hate. I don't feel like at Dark Souls 3 they're trying to pick up too many new people.
No, and that's the interesting thing is Bloodborne. They clearly were
Yeah. This
like.
seems like more of a
Mhm.
game that was meant for the people who loved Dark Souls 1 and 2, whereas Bloodborne was that let's see if we can get more people on board with what we're trying to do here.
Yeah, and I don't think that's a bad thing. I feel like people were like kind of mad that like, oh, Bloodborne was more simplified. It was like a simpler game, and it did all these things that cut down on the side. Like Bloodborne is a smaller game than Dark Souls 3. Dark Souls 3 is freaking huge. Actually, it's one of the cool things about it. It's like just the massive size of things. They do a lot of cool stuff with perspective and scale. And like some of
Yeah.
the monsters you fight are pretty big and like unexpectedly large. So that stuff I love. But Bloodborne just kind of like streamlined everything, and I felt it streamlined it for the better. And Dark Souls actually does a lot of stuff that it took from Bloodborne to streamline stuff. One of the things I didn't like about the original Dark Souls is that you couldn't warp anywhere, so you actually had to like travel all over. You had like
Yeah.
if you want to go to the shop, you actually had to like walk all the way back to a shop,
Yeah.
which could be like a 5 minute walk, which is kind of frustrating. So in this one, they did sort of they actually did the Bloodborne thing. So every time you get to a rest spot, you can actually travel back to the place that has all your shops, it's everything like right where you need it to be, and that's pretty cool. I really do enjoy that. That's actually similar to something that they had done in Demon Souls, which I played a little bit of. I I really really like this game. I think that like literally just like as I keep thinking about it, talking about it, it's like it really just feels like I like this game. It's just not as good as Bloodborne. But I'll keep playing it.
Yeah.
It's still an amazing game. I will say though that like when I was playing it, there's points, especially when I was like when it hadn't really clicked yet. I was playing Ratchet more. I was playing Ratchet and Clank like a lot more. I was like, I'm having more fun with Ratchet and Clank. And then, but then as soon as it clicked, I played a lot more of Dark Souls, like a ton of. Then I played a ton. I will say that if you have bought this game and you feel like it hasn't clicked yet, I will say that like especially coming off Bloodborne, it takes maybe to the third boss before it clicks, which is a lot, which is asking a lot of people. It's like 3 or 4 hours into the game before it actually really clicks for you.
Now, to be fair, Doug said the same thing when I started playing Bloodborne. That if you just get 3 or 4 bosses in, it'll click and it'll be the greatest game you've ever played. And I got that far, and it's definitely not the greatest game I played. So just put a little warning out there.
I think that Dark Souls and Bloodborne are games that some people just will not enjoy. I think you still would enjoy. I still think you would enjoy Bloodborne though. I think eventually one day, like you're like, oh, I should put this in and restart it. Just start with a fresh character. I think you'd really enjoy it. But no, I am one of the people who I think these games are really good, but I think that they are meant for a very specific group of people who could really, really enjoy them. I really hate when people say something like, "Oh, hey, I'm looking for somebody's new to games. Like, what game should I recommend them?" Like Dark Souls. Like, no, you should not recommend Dark Souls to people who are new to games. Like, the game is ferocious in just like a number of ways, just complexity, combat, difficulty. The setting's even super weird compared to most games in general. So no, I think it's a cool series. I definitely don't think it's for everybody. I still think you should play. I still think you like Bloodborne though. I will, dying breath. I'll be like, Brad should have played Bloodborne. I'll save my dying breath for something much better.
I was gonna say, I'm glad I mean that much to you. I didn't know that.
No, the only time that would happen would probably be like if I was shot right after saying that sentence unexpectedly.
Just walking down the street, Brad should have played Bloodborne. Oh shit!
No, it'd be like Brad should have played Bloodborne. Bam.
Well, I guess since we're talking about Dark Souls 3, it's okay that this got morbid really quick.
Yeah, no, that game's pretty morbid. So yeah. No.
Yeah. So difficulty wise, like, 'cause I know that's a big thing with these games that people are like all about, like harder than the other ones.
I thought at first it was much harder than Bloodborne, but when I actually got to the point where where you start out with Bloodborne, you have like 20 vials to use of health, and in this one you only get 3 to start out with, but they filled most of your health. They fill like 80% of your health as opposed to like half your health or whatever the blood vials did. So when I had like very little health container things, it was that's what it took me a long time just to get into. I just kept dying like a ton. And Bloodborne, I actually didn't die a whole. I think you actually saw the first time I played Bloodborne. Like I was actually doing okay the first time I played it.
Yeah, that pissed me the hell off.
Oh, but yeah, that's because I knew how to play those games. This one though, like even knowing how to play Dark Souls game, it's still I don't know what it is with this one specifically because even the original Dark Souls it didn't take me that long to get into. There's something weird about this, and I don't know what it is. I'm sure there's people who play these games much more than I have who could explain why this one might feel harder to get into and why it feels so much harder first. But now, like literally, I have like this is not spoiler, but I have many more health packs essentially, and now I'm just kind of cruising through the game. Like I'm dying still, but
how would the number of health packs be a spoiler?
Oh god, the people are super. Okay, this is like a weird tangent. People are super sensitive to spoilers. This game, even I am. This game is a lot of it relies on exploration aspects, and a lot of it relies on surprises. Surprises could be something. What does that do with
health packs? Like, oh, I can carry 30 health packs now. Spoiler alert.
Well, no. Well, the thing is, like, okay. Well, here's the thing. It's like it's knowing, say, like the final number of weapons in Ratchet and Clank.
I don't care.
No, you don't, but somebody might. It's like because you don't know because some people like they want to have no idea going into a game how long the game is or whatever it is, so they want to know how far they are. They don't, to me like Ratchet and Clank, like it's easy to tell how far you are into a game based on like certain things, and like the amount of Estus flags you have kind of indicates how far you are in the game. So I don't know. It's people are really sensitive about that stuff. Just unless you play Dark Souls, you just wouldn't understand.
Ouch. Well.
No, it's just a game that's like that. Really, I try to play completely blind, and I know a lot of other people try to play completely blind, which is why people are a lot of really pissed about the marketing of this game, where they send a bunch of YouTubers it. So there's like you can watch the entirety of Dark Souls 3 like a week before it came out, which is absolutely ridiculous.
Well, and didn't it get like a weird release where it was already released in Europe or Japan or something like 3 weeks before?
Yeah, it was already released in Japan, but they gave the English version to YouTube streamers.
Oh, well, that's nice of them.
No, it's not because YouTube streamers like they don't care about spoilers and stuff. It's their job to play games. Like I can understand why they wouldn't want to be sensitive about that, but like a lot of this stuff is about discovery and things like that. And like people keep like on my Twitter, like people are tweeting, it's like, "Oh, look at this cool boss!" Like, no, I don't want to look at that cool boss. Like that's a cool surprise. I can't even think of like a mainstream game that it would be like similar to that, where like you're excited to see the creatures and do it, because even like Pokemon, like they tell you what all the Pokemon are before you get there. So I don't know, it's really hard. I can't even think of a similar game. It'd be kind of like spoiling like the set pieces of Uncharted.
Oh yeah, I can see that. Yeah. Well, I mean, I feel like that like bosses or something. I was more yeah, bosses. Like even if you told me the bosses in Ratchet and Clank, I'd be like, oh, well, that kind of sucks. Like I kind of like seeing the boss for the first time,
Mm-hmm.
but I feel like number of blood vials or whatever they call them this is not like spoiler territory in my
But
mind.
it's
But
just like it's just everything about that game kind of has that same sort of reverence of spoilers, because people really do like that aspect of like going into this game alone. And it really, a lot of that game is very cool if you just stay, if you don't use strategy guides and you stay within that realm and you only use help from people who are actually playing the game at that time. And that's kind of what the game is based on.
yeah,
I mean that's I mean maybe I'm being a little ridiculous with that. But really, I was pretty mad that
probably.
some people spoiled some like really cool stuff for me, just out of the blue, because like, hey, look at this cool thing I did in Dark Souls. It's like, or this cool thing killed me, or this cool. It's just cool game though.
Yeah.
That is pretty cool. I still recommend it. I think that if somebody's one new to the series though, they should definitely pick up Bloodborne first.
All right. Well, there you go. We will have probably a further review later of
Yeah, for
the
sure.
full game and Doug's thoughts, I'm sure.
Hmm.
But anyway, you can follow us at Workforce Gaming on Twitter, subscribe on YouTube, iTunes, wherever you happen to be listening, and we will be back later with more stuff. See ya.